And I hope that after the speakers, we're going to be hearing from some of the students in the Manchester encampment. It's incredibly inspiring to have them watching us here today. I now have the pleasure of introducing our third speaker, Jorge Vilalta. Jorge is a Chavista, deeply involved in the struggle to build socialism in Venezuela. He is the national political coordinator of Movimiento, Otro, which is a Venezuelan grassroots organization working in the barrios to encourage social participation from poorer sections of society. He is also part of Alba Movimientos, an anti-imperialist platform of struggle and joint work of the peoples of America. 25 years, the Chavista movement has fought to take control over Venezuela's oil resources and plow this wealth back into social programs, healthcare, housing, education, as well as regional mutual development projects. And the Bolivarian Revolution has declared its determination to build socialism. And this struggle has been driven forward by an explosion of popular participatory democracy through the commune movement, through the social movements. So it's a great pleasure to share a platform once again here with you, Jorge. We are always inspired to hear of your work in Venezuela. The floor is yours. Are you still with us, Jorge? I know you were here earlier in the meeting. If you want to unmute.
You listen now.
Ah, we can hear you. Welcome,
yeah.
welcome.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you. Panic
Sorry.
for 2 minutes, but you're here. We can see you. We can hear
Thank you.
So
Sorry.
over to you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Sam, by the way. Good evening, comrades. Thank you to the Revolutionary Communist Group for inviting us and generating these necessary spaces for meeting, educating, and exchange of experiences between organizations and peoples of the world. Jacob, are you around? Is it possible to put on the presentation?
Yep, 2 seconds.
Okay. I would like to point out that all the information we are sharing today has been verified and comes from various Venezuelan and international sources, institutions, organizations, and media. Firstly, we all know what's blockade, but I think it's necessary to clarify that we are going to use the term blockade in this conversation, because that's exactly what it is, and we'll see why. The term sanctions or unilateral coercive measures are just euphemisms and technicalities used by Western countries and their multilateral organizations to downplay the importance of this genocidal policy. The blockade is an efficient tool of imperialist governments that develops as multidimensional, permanent, and silent war, fought on several fronts, with all countries attacking a single state at the same time: the government, the territory, and the people. The possible political, diplomatic, commercial, financial, communicational, cultural, and military channels and agreements of a country are suddenly cut off. Wait a second, Jacob, please. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to talk about this one. As I said, all the channels and agreements of a country are suddenly cut off, and its image in the eyes of the world is destroyed. It is a crime against humanity that we must denounce, and it must be punished by international law and eliminated from the concert of nations. It is a boundless war against the people, against the development of life and existence itself. As we will see later, it is people who suffer the greatest consequences of the blockade. Hence, one of its fundamental objectives, as you can see right here, to cause as much damage and suffering as possible to create the conditions for a political or social crisis that the imperialist governments can capitalize on by changing the political project or the government of a country and installing another that follows the interest of Washington and its allies. Thank you. This is the map that shows the 30 countries that are currently in the world that have sanctions from the Office of Foreign Assets Control of the United States government and the European Union. As you can see, all the 30 countries are not in Western Europe or North America. Of almost the 30,000, there are 30,000 sanctions that exist in the world. 96% are distributed in 9 countries. These are the 9 countries that has most sanctions in the planet. And the rest, the other 21 nations only have the remaining 4% of the sanctions. In just 9 years, from 2014 to 2023, Venezuela has already has 930 sanctions, making it the 5th country in the world. This is only going to get worse. A couple of weeks ago, Biden, as you might know, renewed the sanctions that prevent U.S. companies and institutions from doing oil or mining business with Venezuela, and forces Western countries to do the same unless they obtain a license, which obviously is granted by the U.S. government. Next, please. As the curse of aggression against Venezuela, it falls to me to share with you the characteristics of the blockade in my country. Here I must clarify that the war against Venezuela and the Bolivarian Revolution began long before the blockade, with the oil sabotage of 2002 and 2003, the coup against Chavez in April 2002, and the coup attempts in 2014 called La Salida. This is Chavez when he was rescued for the coup. This is the fascist family pig. Oh, you can identify Leopoldo Lopez and Maria Corina Machado and the ghost of Guaido. This was a coup attempt in 2014, and there was also another in 2017 through violent riots. This case was very known. This guy, Orlando Figuera, was burned to death by the ultra right-wing forces only because he was Afro-Venezuelan and he was on a motorcycle and someone said that he was a Chavista. So these are the people that we are facing, and this is the people that supports U.S. policies in our country. We still have that fascist people here. As I was saying, we have survived violent riots, among other actions, sabotages, threats of military invasions, coups and assassination attempts, coordinated and funded directly by the United States in this century alone. However, it is established that the blockade against Venezuela officially began in December 2014 with the approval in the United States Congress of the Venezuelan Human Rights and Civil Society Defense Act, which made possible and gave legality to all subsequent administrative orders, decisions, and declarations of the government, which would be added to the blockade against my homeland. Perhaps the most infamous of these was the so-called Obama Decree in 2015, when the former US President and Nobel Peace Prize winner declared his country in a state of national emergency because Venezuela had supposedly become an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. Imagine telling such a lie and having the media and social networks take it upon themselves to make the masses believe that this is true. Well, this is what had just happened, and then also thrown into that dark hole called the axis of the evil countries and the terrorist governments, where at least we are in very good company with our comrades of Cuba, Bolivia, Nicaragua, and several other beloved peoples. To supply the country, and as an oil producing country, Venezuela depended a lot in those years on imports, and in second instance on the production of national industry. When the blockade came into effect, import routes for food, medicine, and other necessary goods, products, and services were cut off, and almost no country or company wanted to do business with us. The national bourgeoisie played an important destabilizing role through hoarding, usury, and speculation. They closed factories or companies, others minimized their production, and even hid food or medicines in order to increase their price, increase shortages, and generate unrest among the people. As a result, 2016 and 2017 were the most difficult years for us, especially in the poorest communities. There was no food or medicine in the markets, pharmacies, and other distribution centers. There was a serious shortage through the country. And when something did arrive, there were long queues to buy it, even at higher prices that were appropriate. The imperialist government and Venezuelan bourgeoisie could have caused a famine among the population in their eagerness to overthrow the government and dismantle the Bolivarian revolution. If the agricultural, livestock, and fishery productions of our peasants, communes, fishermen councils, small and medium producers had not been maintained and even increased during those years, it would have been a tragedy. In addition, it is important to mention the success of the CLAP, which are the local committees for supply and production program, which was created by the government in 2016 to contain the food crisis through a method of distributing subsidized food through the already existing popular organic structures, communal councils, and communes throughout the country. In 2020, when we were just emerging from the most difficult years in our recent history, COVID arrived. Blockaded with a latent national social and economical crisis, and with little national income to deal with the pandemic. Once again, we used the winning formula of recent years, the union of the people, the armed forces, and the government for the common good. The government did everything possible to obtain the medicines and the medical supplies needed to treat the virus, and the vaccines, which were denied to us by the governments of Europe and North America, we were able to obtain from Cuba, Russia, and China. Through the popular organic structures, such as the communes, communal councils, and the grassroots movements, the general population was organized, including the vaccination plan, contagions, and primary care in the communities, as well as the execution of other related programs and actions. In that same year, in 2020, the United Nations appointed Alina Duhan, a human rights expert, as special rapporteur on the negative impact of unilateral coercive measures. She came to the country to verify in the territory the impact of the blockade in Venezuela and to meet with all sectors of society. In 2021, she issued a conclusive report stating that the United States and the European Union should, and I quote, lift the unilateral sanctions against Venezuela because of their devastating effect on the population. I quote again from the official UN website. Duhan said the sanctions has exacerbated pre-existing economical situations and have dramatically affected the entire population of Venezuela, especially but not only those in extreme poverty. women, children, healthcare workers, people with disabilities or with chronic or life-threatening illnesses, and indigenous populations. You can imagine how this ended. No Western country complied with UN guidance on the matter. Alina Douhan was demonized for her report. There was silence in the media, and finally, nothing more happened. The UN is an outdated multilateral organization, not only because its decisions are not binding and do almost nothing in really urgent and necessary situations such as the current Palestinian genocide, but because it is a Western neo-colonial organization that has been useful in maintaining the status quo since the Second World War, which has allowed the US and Europe to sustain themselves as the main global hegemonic pole. The public international law and multilateral structure that we have in the current international system does not respond to the needs of the people or the subsistence of the life of this planet. Thank you, Jacob. Why block Venezuela? We consider it important to share the political, social, and economical context of Venezuela, which has been in recent years because there has been a lot of misinformation and lies about it, and what the Bolivarian Revolution means for the struggles and free peoples of the world. Only in this way we can understand why and what for Venezuela was blockaded. As for the political and ideological causes, we see in retrospect that the Latin and Caribbean region was politically independent of Washington in the first decade of this century. There was a general rejection, a popular disgust with the neoliberal policies of the 80s and 90s, and powerful movements were born. Diverse leftist movements in the region that expressed themselves in the elections of each of our countries. In Venezuela, Hugo Chavez won the presidential election and took the Western governments by surprise. They never expected that a military man from the Plains region, which is a peasant and conservative region, a descendant of the indigenous and Afro-Venezuelan peoples could have led the Latin American uprising against imperial power together with Fidel, Evo, Nestor and Cristina Kirchner, Lula and Dilma Rousseff, Correa, Ortega, Mujica, among other leaders, and have done so by uniting the peoples and governments of the region, fighting for social justice and the salvation of the planet. Joint programs and projects were created that address the basic and urgent need of the population in areas such as health, education, food, and housing, such as the literacy program Yo Sí Puedo, which means yes, I can, of the Always Solidarity Cuba, which has been applied in nearly 30 countries and which we brought to Venezuela and Bolivia to finally eradicate illiteracy, the axis of evil, eradicating illiteracy. Integration and solidarity mechanisms were also created, such as Alba, CELAC, UNASUR, Petrocaribe, which made it possible to generate a sense of union and shared destiny in the region and to agree on a common political line of peace, stability, social justice, and non-interference by foreign powers in our internal affairs. In addition, new methods of exchange of products and services were developed, taking as reference the complementarity between our countries, prioritizing cooperation and not competition, or in other words, there was solidarity between peoples and governments in practice. In just in years from 2002 to 2012, 168 million Latin Americans were taken out of poverty, which represented almost 30% of our entire population at that time. And in our constitutions, laws, and in the collective imaginations of our people, the rights of the women, of the sex gender diversity, children and adolescents, indigenous people, and Mother Earth were recognized in our countries for the first time. The Bolivarian Revolution and Chavismo as a left-wing political process and movement recognized itself as socialist, feminist, anti-imperialist, and anti-colonial in the struggle for the self-determination of peoples, a promoter of the new multipolar world order, and in solidarity with the just causes of humanity. According to Western imperialists, this was a very bad example for the rest of the countries of the continent and the planet, and they were right. It has been evident in the successive political, social, and electoral victories of the Latin American left forces throughout this century. The United States and Europe had to resolve this as soon as possible, and the key was to diminish the political influence of Bolivarianism and Venezuela on the international stage, using all possible means, including blockade. In terms, thank you, Jacob. I know it's I know it's quite long, but you are doing good, by the way. In terms of economic causes, in 2014, the year that the blockade started officially, and according to World Bank numbers, Venezuela was one of the largest and fastest growing economies in the Latin American and Caribbean region, ranking 4th out of a total of 33 countries, with almost $500 billion of total gross domestic product, only behind countries with much larger territory and population, such as Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. To measure the purchasing power of the population, let us use as reference the GDP per capita index of the region in that same year, 2014, where Venezuela appears in the second place, only surpassed by Uruguay. And to broaden the macroeconomical vision and understand where national incomes were going, let us then look at the Gini coefficient, which measures the inequalities in the population's income, or what is the same, the gap between the rich and the poor. For 2014, Venezuela is the least unequal and fairest country in the administration of national wealth in the entire American continent. This is expressed in the enormous, here's the graph. No, next, thank you. Here's the graph. 1 is the least unequal. No, the most unequal, and 0 being the most equal. And Venezuela is on less than 0.4. This is for 2014, before the blockade started, okay? As I was saying, the government made an enormous social investment on the socialist missions, national social security, and other social protection measures, which exceeded 61% of national income in 2004 and 70% in 2015. As for the country's natural resources, it is well known that we have the largest oil deposit in the world, the Orinoco Oil Belt. But you should also know that we have the 6th largest gas deposit and important deposits of gold, diamonds, iron, coal, copper, bauxite, coltan, nickel, among other mineral goods. Venezuela is also one of the 15 mega-diverse countries in the world and has the 10th largest reserve of fresh water. It is also located in a strategic position in the center of the American continent, close to Europe, Africa, and 4 days away by boat from the US ports. As you can already deduce, Venezuela is coveted by governments and corporations to continue feeding Western capitalism, but we are a sovereign country with a government not aligned to their interest. For the above reasons, we affirm that another cause of the blockade against our country is that Western imperialists could not allow, as on so many other occasions in the modern history of humanity, a revolutionary process that managed money and natural resources in abundance to succeed, and could advance towards a new economical and social model through the redistribution of wealth, towards a state of social justice, and towards building socialism. How was the impact of the blockade on Venezuela? We have talked about it. We have mentioned some of the negative consequences of the blockade already. But to expand the information with facts and numbers, I want just to point out some specific numbers we are going to share. There's a very useful infographic from our comrades of Venezuela Analysis. It's available if you want it. It synthesizes very well some of the impacts. For example, our frozen assets, as you already know, we have gold reserves on the Bank of England and a number of bank accounts blocked. Its consequences are around $8 billion in frozen funds, added obstacles in international transactions. About medical imports, we have frozen funds, blocked transactions to buy medicines, vaccines, and equipment. That has caused hospitals without medical supply men, delaying vaccination campaigns, among others. Oil, we have obviously an oil embargo, secondary sanctions and threats that has caused fall in the output of oil, loss of revenue, as much as $30 billion per year at current oil prices. We also had some seized assets, like the seizure of oil refiner Citgo, which is ours and it's in the United States, and the agrochemical subsidiary Monomeros, which is in Colombia. We are losing $1.5 billion per year with that seizures. And to resume, I want to share some of the numbers of the suffering of our people. It has been calculated more than 100,000 deaths of people because of the several and multi-dimensional aggression that represents the blockade. 22% of children under 5 stunted. More than 2 million persons with food insecurity. 300,000 chronic disease patients without access to treatment, 31% of population undernourished, 69% drop in goods and services imports, outbreaks of previously controlled diseases that had been disappeared are out of the sudden appeared out of nothing. Deteriorated infrastructure, water, electricity, and cooking gas shortages, and as you know, an accelerated migration of about 5 million people, and the consequent brain drain that caused. As I said, blockade is multidimensional. It attacks all the channels and as the possibility for a country to survive, for the people to have access to the material things they need to survive. But it also excludes them from the concert of nations and criminalizes them or demonize them in the collective imagination of the masses. We are not talking about a particular party, ideological current, or government being harmed. All the citizens of that country are harmed by the blockade, generating critical consequences for the very existence of a nation state. How have we fought against the blockade? There are some specific measures and actions we have taken in unity with the people and the government and the armed forces that are important to share. First of all, Venezuelan people has been in permanent mobilization. In times of resistance, we have been supportive and creative in the face of adversity, generating projects, exchanges, and articulations that has allowed us to obtain goods and services that has been denied to us in the international markets. According to numbers and data given by our President Maduro in February of this year, 2024, Venezuela currently produces 97% of the food it needs to supply national demand. Since 2021, Venezuela has improved its macroeconomics through a continuous economical growth in which the indicators of agricultural, commercial, and manufacturing activity had a positive rebound for the country's growth. It is also important to mention that inflation has decreased notably, as well as the steady increase in the price of foreign currency seems to have been brought under control for the first time in a decade. In Venezuela, we are building a post-rentier economical model, diversified, less dependent on raw material or inputs from abroad, with the participation of all sectors and guilds, from local or communal economies to large industry, a mixed model that generates goods and services through national and foreign investment. The communes has been consolidated and strengthened and have become involved in new political, ideological, scientific, and productive processes, some even on the road to industrialization, especially in areas such as agriculture, livestock, fishing, and textile producing. Mass movements has also been generated, such as the Communal Union, which seeks to articulate the struggles of the Chavista people and the national communal movement. In short, the people and the Bolivarian project we are on our feet. We have resisted and overcome our worst moment despite the blockade and all of the attacks and sabotage of imperialism. The horizon of the Chavista revolution remains intact. The construction, the building of socialism and the communal state of a new, more just world, which places the human being and the defense of life on the planet as its center and priority. Finally, there's Chavez. Only socialism saves humanity, says there. Finally, I wanted to say that I heard that there are some students from the cities of Manchester, Newcastle, and London who are in the demonstrations protesting against the Palestinian genocide, and they are participating in this conversation. I wanted to point out how significant it is for the Palestinian struggle and for the peoples of the world that you are there, in the cradle of imperialism, fighting for an end to the Palestinian genocide at the hands of the Zionist government of Israel and the complicity of European and US governments in that massacre. Young comrades, thank you for setting an example, for being a symbol of resistance, and know that you are not alone. The peoples of the world are with you. Every day, there are more and more of us who are fighting for justice, for peace, and for life on planet. Venezuela is with you. Bolivarian revolution is with you all. We will resist and we shall overcome. Viva Palestina!
Viva! Thank you for your contribution, Jorge. I think it's really important to expose the impact of sanctions on Venezuela, but also you know, the media manipulation around Venezuela. Venezuela is leading the struggle for socialism in South America, and it is the threat of a good example. And this is completely distorted in our media, and this is to undermine solidarity with Venezuela. So we must fight the media lies. This is part of our solidarity tasks.